welcome to This Week with Ajaz Haque. It's Sunday today, 25th April 2021. The topics we'll cover today: America admits defeat in Afghanistan and lays out an exit strategy. Corona is out of control in India. It's no longer just an Indian problem, it's a humanitarian problem. The biggest polluters in the world make tall commitments at the virtual summit, and Pakistan in a quandary over an extremist TLP. Afghanistan is a graveyard of the empires. The British learned their lesson a long time ago when they occupied Kabul for nearly 100 days, and every single British soldier and office was slaughtered by the Afghans, except one doctor who accompanied the unit, and I guess he was allowed to come back in order to give a report. And then the Soviet Union came and invaded Afghanistan, and that broke up the Soviet Union into pieces, and freeing up many states, and then Russia being on its own. And then finally, the United States attacked Afghanistan post 9/11, and even though they'd won the war in the first 3 months, but due to their arrogance and probably because of their ammunition industry and the substantial interest Mr. Cheney and the others had in it, they wanted to continue the war and defeat the Taliban. 20 years later, the Americans are defeated and disgraced in Afghanistan. They have accomplished absolutely nothing. They have a puppet government which rules only Kabul and not the rest of Afghanistan. They have created a 350,000 strong Afghan army, which is nothing but shambles. They are mostly Taliban or the Afghans who come and take the salary, take the arms, and disappear into thin air. And so that has been a total disaster. It's typical lesson for the colonizers that you cannot control remote control places like Afghanistan.
I flew to Afghanistan, to the Kunar Valley, a rugged mountainous region on the border with Pakistan. What I saw on that trip reinforced my conviction that only the Afghans have the right and responsibility to lead their country, and that more and endless American military force could not create or sustain a durable Afghan government. Osama bin Laden was gone. That was 10 years ago. Think about that. We delivered justice to bin Laden a decade ago, and we've stayed in Afghanistan for a decade since. Since then, our reasons for remaining in Afghanistan have become increasingly unclear, even as the terrorist threat.
President Biden this week rightly said that when he visited Afghanistan as vice president, he wondered what on earth was America doing there, and what is it that America can do for Afghanistan. It was beyond his logic. And he went and reported to President Obama, and unfortunately, President Obama was also played by the generals, and he not only continued but increased the war in Afghanistan. President Trump finally came to his senses and wanted to end the war, but the generals did not allow him. And even now, the generals advised Biden to maintain a certain amount of force and not to withdraw from Afghanistan. But Biden, knowing exactly what's happening on the ground, announced that America should not have been there for this long. It's a waste of time, waste of money. $1 trillion plus several thousand soldiers, American soldiers dead, and more than 20,000 soldiers injured, and many more with psychological problems. So I guess lessons have been learned. But the question is that if President Biden had realized nearly 12 years ago that America should not be in Afghanistan, then why did it take America this long to leave Afghanistan? Secondly, the peace deal that the U.S. had signed with the Taliban, it required the Americans to exit Afghanistan on or before May 1. Now, the exit plan that President Biden has announced is they start the exit from Afghanistan on May 1, but do not complete it till 9/11/2021. It remains to be seen if the Taliban will accept this and bring about an orderly and peaceful change, a transition. The issue is the Afghan government, which is a puppet government of the United States, does not want to give up power. They do not want a a joint government with Taliban in the interim. And Mr. Ashraf Ghani wants to continue to hold on to power, hold the elections, have himself re-elected fraudulently, and then see to it that what happens. This obviously is not going to work. The American plan was that there should be an interim government which includes all parties, including Taliban, and then that interim government would hold the elections. And I think that is the best solution. And the April Afghan peace conference in Turkey has now been postponed to May, mid-May. So hopefully the Afghan government will come to its senses, and the Taliban will also stay quiet and peaceful, and honor the American wishes of exit from Afghanistan. And hopefully there will be an interim government and then a transition to a new government before the American troops leave Afghanistan. However, it remains to be seen if America will leave in a peaceful order, or will we see the same scenes as when America left Vietnam in complete disarray. Now, in India, there is a massive situation with the coronavirus, and it's completely out of control. Every day, nearly 350,000 people are reporting being affected by coronavirus. And according to the Indian government, around 2,700 people are dying every day. Although many Indians and the New York Times says the actual number of deaths are probably 5 times as high, and the Indian government is misreporting, and it's forcing the state governments also to misreport the numbers. The problem is there is no oxygen, there are no hospital beds.
ऑक्सीजन की कमी के कारण अस्पताल में जो हालत बने हुए हैं वो अब देखे नहीं जाते. लोग बहुत ज्यादा तकलीफ में हैं सर. पूरी रात हम सो नहीं पाते, नींद नहीं आती. इनका मुख्यमंत्री होते हुए भी मैं कुछ नहीं कर पा रहा. डर लगता है कि ऑक्सीजन की कमी से कहीं कोई बड़ा हादसा ना हो जाए.
Bhay and Chinta, words which were used by the government today. For anyone who's living in Delhi, you've gone beyond that. Not very few in Delhi would not know somebody today who's in a hospital struggling to breathe. So many of us today woke up with news of colleagues who had passed away because of COVID, because they could have been saved, but they did not get that necessary remdesivir or that oxygen which they needed to.
People are dying on the streets. People come to hospitals, but they're not admitted, and they die outside the hospital. Or I have seen videos where people just falling in the streets and dying. Very unfortunate situation. Now, this is beyond India. Although many people blame Mr. Modi for holding political rallies in Bengal and also allowing the religious Kumbh festival, Kumbh Mela, where hundreds of thousands of Indians showed up without masks, without social distancing, and many of them carrying the COVID virus, which is then spread like wildfire. There's not enough ground to burn the dead bodies. There's not enough ground to bury the dead bodies of the Muslims and the Christians. And things are becoming desperate. Now, Prime Minister Imran Khan has offered to help India and has sympathized with the Indian public. Also, Pakistan's Eidi Foundation, which does wonderful work in such areas, is on standby with 50 ambulances and medical staff to cross the border into India and help India, or at least contribute to India's needs. However, it depends on whether Mr. Modi will play with his ego or will he accept this. But whoever is responsible, this is not the time. I think this is a humanitarian crisis now and not just an Indian crisis, and the whole world needs to pay attention. Apparently, the US has stopped many of the medical supplies to India, which they need desperately, including the raw material for the vaccine, and I think all that should be opened up so that the situation is controlled. Otherwise, this can spread to the world and it could cause a great deal more damage. Now, a virtual climate summit was held in which many world leaders participated. It was led by President Joe Biden. However, the hypocrisy of it all is that the biggest polluters in the world, United States, China, and India, made tall promises to cut greenhouse gases and emissions. But they've made these promises several times before, and they have never implemented them. So it remains to be seen whether there will be any implementation. Now, Pakistan ended up with an extremist organization called Tehreek Pakistan, TLP, demonstrating throughout the country and virtually bringing the country to a standstill. These goons were protesting against the cartoons, Prophet Muhammad's cartoons, in France, which the French government did not do anything to stop. And by protesting, they damaged the property in Pakistan, citizen property, government property. 8 people were killed and many were injured. And the TLP has now been banned, and there are criminal cases against tens of them. And hopefully it has been brought under control. But the thing is, when organizations like these are allowed to prosper in the first place, this is the outcome that happens in the end. Anyway, this video has gone a bit long, and so we will cover the financials next week. Take care, have a good week, and pray for India. Thank you and goodbye.